Thank you, everybody. I want to introduce our speaker and sponsor for today, Reinke with Broken Arrow Farm LLC, located outside of Philly, Nebraska, which is just south of here. Riley is one of these guys that I recruited sight unseen. I saw his business out on the internet, thought it would be an interesting topic, and so I reached out to him, and he was gracious enough to say yes. And it's been great to get to know him as he's attended coffee these last few weeks. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Riley.
All right, thanks, Steve. First of all, we've got a giveaway here. How many of you like to eat? Okay, good. How many of you know where your food comes from? All right, this book here is called Holy Cows and Hog Heaven. It's by a very charismatic farmer named Joel Salatin out in Virginia. It'll go through what does it look like to be a friendly local customer? Why should you choose local food? And different aspects of it. It's a great, simple little read. Like I said, he's very charismatic. It's fun to read. He calls himself a Christian libertarian, environmentalist, capitalist, lunatic farmer, and there will be sayings like that scattered all throughout the book. I've got 3 copies of it, and what I'm going to do is pass this bowl around, put your business card in it, and then at the end I'll draw 3 names. So as Steve said, I'm Riley Reinke. I've got Broken Arrow Farm down by Philly, Nebraska. Today's talk, I'd like to give a little history about that and why we do what we do, and then transition more into talking about, what does organic mean? Because we're not certified, but we follow organic standards. And what should you look for when you're out buying your food, and other ideas on that topic. And for me, I've got an outline that I could speak all day on. So what I would like to do is, if you have questions during the talk, just raise your hand and ask them, because I want to talk about what you want to know rather than just all the crazy things I want to talk about. So feel free, raise your hand, blurt them out, whatever, during the talk, and we'll see how far we get. So my farm experience begins with farm toys on a floor in my parents' house. When I was about 7 years old, I met a friend, and we played with farm toys all the time, farmed millions of acres of carpet, which, okay, a few houses, or a few rooms more like, and I didn't grow up on a farm. My grandpa was the last one in my family to farm, and he retired when I was about 4 or 5 years old. But growing up, I always liked agriculture. So when I was 8 or 9, we started having a family garden. Everyone in the area grew corn and soybeans, so I like to take care of the sweet corn and some of the green beans, but otherwise my mom took care of the rest of it. As I got older and started looking at career choices, I thought, well, engineering would be fun because, farming, you just grow corn and soybeans, it takes a ton of money to get into. You can't make much on it. So I went off to college for mechanical engineering. I got a good scholarship, and after a while at that, I was in Tractor Supply one day and found this book, and it said, you can make $20,000 on a quarter acre growing vegetables in your free time. Thought this is a complete lie. There's no way you can do that. So of course I bought it and was going to figure out how to do that. And I grew up just, conventional. We didn't do organic, or I didn't know anything about that or any of that stuff. And this book had talked about, or using organic methods, and they're talking about growing 100 pounds of carrots on, a piece of ground the size of a sheet of plywood, so just 4 by 8 foot area. I thought, this is intriguing. So that summer, I had already been planning on transferring to an ag school, and went to Northwest Missouri State for agronomy and ag business. And I tried one of these plots. It went great. This was in 2014. I thought, this is great. It's labor intensive, and how can I make this a farm? And by this point, I was thinking, rather than doing large scale farming, let's do some small scale. Fast forward to 2015, I was playing a bunch of weird stuff like Scurrit, which is a root crop that comes back every year. You dig it up, cut some roots off, eat them like carrots, put the plant back, and it comes back next year. Stuff like mosh, which is a little called corn salad. It's a little green that's native to Europe. And I was giving stuff away and selling a little bit, and wanted to start the farm, but still wasn't sure how to. And that year I found a book called The Market Gardener by Jean-Martin Fortier up in Canada. And he was doing exactly what I wanted to do, had been doing it for years. I just hadn't heard about him. Him and his wife make $100,000 on an acre, or per acre. They have an acre and a half, and that's gross income. They're netting $50,000 to $60,000. So, I mean, an acre is the size of a football field with end zones, and that they're netting $30,000 to $40,000 on each one of those. So in 2016, I started the farm. We do 38 vegetable and herb crops. We have pastured laying hens, which we rotate around. We've got honeybee hives. I've got some strawberry plants. We've got blackberries, raspberries, a little bit of everything. We've got some wild mushrooms that grow on the farm just naturally. And we sell through farmers markets, direct to consumer. And we've this year started to do online sales and start a farm partner program where if you pay us at the beginning of the season when we need money for seeds and fertilizer, we give you discounts and we'll deliver to your house. We offer pre-ordering and pickup at the farmer's market. And then we also do wholesaling through a wholesaler up here, and then also directly to restaurants and grocery stores in Beatrice. And we're gonna start moving up here in Lincoln too. Our principles, I've got a list of them. We're very customer transparent, which is something very useful to you, the consumer, because on these large farms, these confinement operations, they normally don't let you in there. They've got no trespassing signs. Us on the other hand, we're more the type of trespassers will be impressed rather than, they'll be oppressed. So we're very open with that. We use organic methods, as I said. I actually shouldn't be saying that word because since we're not certified, we can't say that in any of our advertising. We also, we're non-GMO, which is part of the organic, and we're about broad spectrum nutrition and healthy soil to make healthy plants. So that's really what the goal of the farm is to make customers healthy, make the best food. We won't be at Walmart prices or cheap like that. We want to be the best when it comes to flavor and nutrition. So that's a little bit about the farm. What the main point of this talk, as I said, is going to be how do you choose what you're going to eat? If you go to the farmer's market, there's, I think, 200 vendors down at Haymarket, for example, 60 or 70 at Old Cheney, which is now going to be up at 48th and Prescott. How do you choose that? So, does anybody here have a good definition for what organic is? You can.
I'll try.
Okay.
Organic is not adding anything, no pesticides, no herbicides to the food that you're growing.
Mm-hmm.
Not doing it intentionally. However, we do know that there are some of those pesticides in the soil, and you do receive it in the atmosphere, but you do the best you can.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Organic is not using any synthetic chemicals, pesticides, herbicides, fertilizers. On the cattle side of things, it's supposed to mean out grass-fed in the pastures. Recently, there's a lawsuit with Walmart about their organic eggs because they're raised in a barn. One example is a farm in Kansas where they've got a series of barns, raise them in confinement, not healthy for the animals. Eggs are a great example because when you crack them open, eggs from the store will look real pale inside, and when you put them in a pan, they'll be real flat. When you take eggs like ours that are raised out on pasture, or anybody for that example that raises them that way, the egg yolks are real dark. They're almost an orange color, and they'll stand up more. They'll be firmer. So organic does not have anything to do with nutrition, though. There's no nutrition standard, and that's one common misconception that I hear at farmers market. Another one is with people that aren't at all familiar with it. We hear, oh, just because you're growing vegetables, you must be organic, or you're at the farmers market, you are. And that's not true. I would say over half of the people, even up here in Lincoln, are not organic. And for us, that's it's a big deal not to use the pesticides, which I'll get into in a little bit. But like I said, I don't have time to go into the depth, but I just want to that's basically what organic is. There are other standards out there you'll see. Non-GMO project verified. What that means is we're using genetically modified organisms. We don't go through that certification, but you'll see that quite often at places like Walmart, Hy-Vee, whatever. That mainly has to do with grain crops. Most vegetable crops and fruit crops are not genetically modified. And that genetic modification, what it is, for example, in corn, they take the corn plant, and it's real common to have pest issues with worms going in and eating the corn off the ears. So they take a bacteria called Bt for short, and as it was described to me in college in plant science, they take the equivalent of a tiny shotgun loaded with DNA from the Bt, and they shoot it at the corn and hope that some of it stays in the DNA there, or hope that one or two do. And then they replicate this, the pesticide is in every cell of the plant, which that comes back to human health, and there's a huge controversy over, are there side effects from the GMOs, are there not? In my opinion, there are some health side effects because of it. You're not just going to obviously fall over and die the next day, because most people eat these on a daily basis, but they have shown where it's increased cancer risks, and also with digestive issues. This Bt specifically, what it does is it goes inside the gut of the caterpillar or bug, and it basically makes it explode. And when it comes to human health, it doesn't actually affect the human part of you, but you've also got 13 trillion bacteria in your gut, give or take a few hundred billion, and it does affect them. So recently we've seen increases in digestive disorders, Crohn's or IBS, etc. And that can be one of the issues of that. With all of this, I try not to be too fear-mongering, because there are plenty of documentaries out there that say, oh, you watch this, if you eat this, you're gonna die, you're gonna get cancer and all this. And I like to find balance, because eating healthy shouldn't be torture. You can go to Dairy Queen, get a Blizzard, or go eat Krispy Kreme donuts occasionally, as long as you don't do it too often. Besides those two verifications, there's also something called certified naturally grown, and that is pretty much like organic, except that it's not a government program. It's more for smaller farmers, and you have to be careful. If it just says natural, that doesn't mean anything in the store. If it says certified naturally grown, that does actually mean something. Before the talk, I was talking to Jeff about how all the paperwork we have to go through for organic and all that. So some places have come up now with certified transitional, which means that during our 3-year period, because it takes 3 years from the last chemical to when we can certify organic, and during those 3 years on the grain side of things especially, it's hard to make money because you don't get a premium. I should also mention that my dad and I also are transitioning about 300 acres of organic cropland over to organic. We're adding a couple more 100 acres this year, so I'm fairly familiar with that too. But what that does is that transitional, it gives us a little bit of a benefit to help us with the extra costs associated with transition before we can actually say that we're organic. So that's the basic of the labeling. What I'd like to go into now is, why should you do it? Yes?
Now, you said earlier that you are not certified organic. So
On-
are you transitioning, or are you
On the
doing that on purpose, or what where do you stand on
On the produce side of things, we are keeping records so that we can be certified. The paperwork and the cost are the big issue. The cost is about $600 to certify, and then the paperwork, for example, every input that we have on the farm, from fertilizer or seed, we have to track its origin. If it's a mixed fertilizer, we have to get labels from the fertilizer company of what's actually in it to make sure it's approved. We have to have application dates and rates for everything, which when we're doing 300 square foot beds, which is our standard, it's hard to keep track of those when we've got 60 of them. And then with seeds, every seed has to be an organic seed or it has to be non-treated. But if it's non-organic but non-treated, we have to call 2 other companies and write down phone call information of when we call them, who we talk to verify that they don't have an organic option of that variety, and specify how this trait is different from organic options. So there again, we're doing 38 different crops. We've got multiple varieties of each of those. There's 70, 80 different types of seed we're ordering each year. And with all those varieties, we have to verify, about half of them that we use aren't organic because of certain traits, but they're non-treated. So we have to go through all those and verify why we chose those, what's different about them, etc. And really for our sales right now for farmers market, people, from what I've seen, don't really care. We've got a couple people that have asked about it. There's only one person I know of that hasn't bought because we aren't certified. The reason that I'm keeping all the records though and trying to make it so I can be if I need to is that with the wholesaling side of things, where this last year I've sold to Open Harvest and some of the high V's, they do care, because people that care about that can't walk up to me and say, how'd you raise this? Is it good or that? They can't all call me. So on that, eventually we probably will become certified once that becomes a big enough issue. Moving on to the major reason I got into this was nutrition. All these plants, they need 16 nutrients just to grow and be healthy. According to a chemistry book that I used in college, we humans need at least 22, and 4 of those either come from the atmosphere or can. Carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, and nitrogen can. And 95% of what we are is made up of that. And that is what gives us, that can give us energy, carbohydrates, etc. But what the other 5% gives us is what is called grow food. And those are the nutrients that actually build us up, help create strong bodies, and give us the energy to go do our work. With all you being entrepreneurs and working hard, you know how stress can affect people, and what these foods do when they're nutritious is it's not going to avoid the stress, but it's going to help us adapt to it. It's the same as with plants. If we plant any of our crops in poor soil, bugs are going to come at it. If we get a little dry spell, they're just going to shrivel up and die. If we've got it in good soil, when those pests come, they aren't going to eat very much of it. The plant will be able to come back and break through it. Whereas, someone with a poor diet, stress comes and hits them, they're going to have a lot more health issues than someone that's got a good foundational diet. And obviously there's a mental and physical aspect, but the diet part of it is a huge issue, because that's the foundation of what actually builds your body and allows you to do those other things. The issue I have with the conventional management of nutrients is that even dating back to the 50s and 60s, we saw lower nutrition and proteins in food. And a lot of the fertilizers just have your nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, but they don't have all the other ingredients needed to produce healthy plants or people. So what I think we really need is to be helping these farmers, and it'd be nice to have a nutritional standard to show we've got all these nutrients in here. We've got the borons, we've got iodine and all this stuff so that we can be healthy. Because iodine, for example, if you don't have that, there's thyroid issues. And that's something that we're only talking about maybe 1 pound per acre, but it has to be there. So with that, what we do is we use rock powders. They contain anywhere from 12 to 20 different nutrients in it. We soil test for about 16 different ones. Like I said, with the organics, that has nothing to do with nutrition. They don't have any standard with that. The only people I know working with that is International Ag Labs up in Minnesota. They're currently creating some nutritional standards, especially for tomatoes. But when you go, if you shop at the farmer's market, and this is one of the good reasons to buy local, is that you have the opportunity to go talk to the farmer. You can go out to the farm. If they don't let you come out to the farm, you should probably go buy somewhere else, because they're probably trying to hide something. But you can ask them about it, and that's what books like that one that I'm giving away, that's what they give you the basics of what you need to know for that. It's not something that you need, a degree in or to spend tons of time on, but your diet is what affects, your health. Are you gonna have energy? Are you gonna be able to go out and work 80 hours a week and create your business? Or are you gonna be, waking up tired all the time? Are you gonna have degenerative diseases and all that? And as I've said, diet can't fix all of them, but it is good prevention for all those. Yes?
Is there going to be a new category for organic? For example, you're explaining what you do about adding the nutrients, but I was wondering if there's a new classification that's coming, organic with added natural minerals and nutrients.
In the organic sector, I haven't seen anything like that. This actual organic certification, since it's through USDA and with all the government side of things, it's really hard to get changes like that implemented in there. I would see it something like that coming more from like certified naturally grown or an organization like that. With the organic standards too, it's really been the last couple of years since bigger companies like Walmart have started carrying them and we've got these big farms in there. It's been hard to even maintain them as strict as they are. So I don't do cattle, except, I've got chickens. On that side of things, just even keeping the standards in there that they have to be on pasture. Right now it's at for 30% of their life. Just keeping those in there has been hard. And there is, I'm trying to think of the name of it, there is actually a safety rule that they keep pushing back when it comes to cattle because there's some controversy about it. So with the organic certification on meats and dairy, it's kind of iffy if that's really that beneficial. But yeah, I wish there was some sort of standard for that. But I don't see it coming soon. That would be really nice, because with eggs, for example, it was almost 10 years ago now, there was a study done that tested eggs from different farms that had them out on pasture, let them free range, etc., versus several that were bought in the store. And what we were seeing is cholesterol levels 30% lower than the ones bought in the store. Nutrient levels were 50 to 250% higher, depending on the nutrient. And that's information that would be good to get out there, because, you can go into Walmart and get eggs that are 89 cents or $5 eggs. And at farmer's market, we always get that question, why are your eggs $5? And because the shell, you don't see the difference. When you crack it open, you can see the yolk is different, but actually having those numbers there to say that it's better or some sort of certificate would be very helpful, since it's not something that you physically see. So yeah, thanks for that question, because that's something I'd really like to see. Yeah.
When you started this, I'm imagining you had a lot of upfront cost. How'd you handle that?
So that's one of the reasons I went with this method of farming. We actually don't even have a tractor. That's one of the for the small scale farmers at Jean-Martin Fortier. That's where I heard about him, or what I liked about him. We have a what's called a two-wheel tractor. It's essentially a tiller with a 13 horsepower engine on it, but it's got a quick attach PTO on it, and we can run a tiller on it. We can run a generator. We can run a snow blower, pressure washer, hay baler, any of that stuff, and it's just this little tiller deal. And that, I mean, those new, we had about $10,000 in cost for brand new, all that. The other major expense was we have a high tunnel, which is just an unheated greenhouse. That was about the same price. Most of it was I've been saving up because I'd been thinking about doing this for 2 or 3 years beforehand. So I saved up and got those and got through the first year, and then a couple other things that are for weeding, we just do hand tools for the most part. A couple of other things that are necessary are, a walk-in cooler is great to have, and processing equipment, just some stainless steel. Because with FSMA coming out, they're getting a lot stricter about how you handle food and all this. We actually didn't have a cooler the first year. There's a little device called a CoolBot, and it'll take an air conditioner and trick it so that it'll keep the interior of this custom-built cooler at 40 degrees, and the CoolBot's $300. That's what we were gonna do. I actually got lucky, and the Nebraska Sustainable Ag Society, they had some equipment through a Grow Fresh Local program at UNL that had to be sold because it was in Cather Hall. And so I got a walk-in cooler and then a big, I don't know what it is, about 9 foot long, this big commercial sink for maybe a fifth the price of new, and they work great, so that helps too. But if you're talking large scale with grain farming, that's a good question, because even to get the equipment used, by the time you get a tractor and cultivators and all that, it's going to be, I don't know how you could do it with under 100,000 unless you find someone that has it. And with leasing equipment too, you have to do, if it's used on a non-organic farm, and then for certified organic, you have to do cleanouts. And just for example, for a combine, it takes about 10 hours to do a full cleanout on it. So even if you're hiring someone, you have to pay them or spend 10 hours yourself doing it just for one field, if that's all you have. So there are plenty of older guys out there that are looking for people to take over their farms. The average farmer is 60, so if you can find someone that is organic, there are several in Nebraska that I think that's about what you'd have to do. So, yeah.
So with it being wintertime, how do you offset not being able to grow your produce and stuff in the winter versus the warmer weather?
As far as like income stream, or just right now, my dad's got a few small businesses, so I help and work with those. But also on the grain crops that we're certifying, the paperwork takes hours. There's probably 30 pages, if not more, of paperwork and stuff to take care of. But also, we're doing a lot of crop planning for next year. It's not stuff that pays, so really we have to make enough to get through the winter to make the farm sustainable in the long run. Right now I'm not at that point though, so I do help. My dad's got a machine shop, and like I said, a couple other small businesses I help in the winter, which is good because it's flexible. I know a couple other farmers that they do soil sampling for a company. They just go out to fields and take soil samples for farmers, so that in the fall and then in the early spring. We can, around here, grow some crops year-round. In the winter, there's not enough light to physically grow them, but with crops like carrots, with salad greens, what we can do is plant them in the fall. Around here, it's early to mid-August. And if we have them covered with 1 or 2 layers of plastic, we don't even need heat. They'll stay in the ground all winter, and we can cut them. And they'll, like with spinach, it'll slowly come back. We can get maybe 1 more cut off of it. And that's what I'd like to do in the future because there really aren't many people doing it, but I know guys up in Canada doing it, so I know it can be done. And the issue with that is just we need money for infrastructure. With our one high tunnel that we have, it's 2,500 square foot, and it's just a thing of scale is that we can plant some in there to wholesale, but we can't we can't be efficient enough to sell it directly to consumer because we just can't grow enough in there over the winter. So, yeah.
Weather-wise, when do you start planting for the season, and how late can you plant?
We start tomatoes, peppers, and early onions in either last week of January or first week of February. So we've got them up and growing now. The onions, we're looking at direct seeding. We did an experiment of overwintering it. We'll have to see how that goes. Otherwise, the last planting we'll do of regular crops for this year will be late September.
Okay.
For maybe radishes. I think, if I remember right, it's November 10th when we hit 10 hours of sunlight, which is generally considered when crops won't grow. We will do garlic planting after that because that's planted in the fall. We'll plant that in late October because we want that to just come up, get an inch or two tall, and then have the winter come and make it dormant because that way in the spring it'll be established and take off early. If we plant it in the spring, the bulbs won't get very big, which on garlic, for both us from a monetary standpoint, since it's sold by weight, and both the consumer having to break apart the cloves and use them, having big cloves is very beneficial. So, yeah, thanks. Yes?
It sounds to me like you've done a lot of reading, done a lot of research, and when you were talking about pre-ordering where you could pick it up at the farmer's market,
Mhm.
it sounds like you've done some stuff with some marketing automation, and so I'm kind of curious what you've used for that. Have you created your own systems? Are you using apps?
Right now, it's pretty basic. We've got a website set up through Squarespace, and I was using GoDaddy previously, and it seemed real confusing to set up the store and all that, so I switched over. And yeah, last fall, I just spent a couple evenings and just figured it out, set up the store through there. And then when we, at Farmers Market, we use Square to accept debit and credit cards. There is a new software out called Tend, which is specifically for small farms like myself. And it allows for a website and store and all that to be linked up, but it just came out this month. February 1st was the first time you could buy it. And I did some beta testing for them the last few months, and I think that would be a good avenue in the future. It's just not set up to the point where I trust it yet. So yeah, right now we're just doing it, set up a store through the website on Squarespace, and I went in and for delivery, it just has locations. So it'll say, for example, select your pickup location. You want to go to the College View Farmers Market, pick up at Beatrice. You can come out to the farm, and we have customers that just come, and we've got a spot in our walk-in cooler. People just drive out, the order will be boxed up, pick it up when they want to, and then go from there. So, yeah.
You really have gardened enough to know that occasionally you get past certain bugs.
Oh, more than occasionally.
Yeah, or your tomatoes get blight.
Uh-huh.
And then when you're running an operation like yours, how do you deal with that organically? How do you get rid of the bugs? How do you get rid of the blight?
It depends on the crop. There have been studies to show that with the better soil you have, the less crop pests you have. Actually, this book here is by William Albrecht. He was at University of Missouri for 40 or 50 years, and he did tests even back in the 30s and 40s to show that with crops like, he did spinach, for example, that soils with good calcium and phosphorus don't have the pest issues of other soils. But the soil we started with was great texture-wise, but horrible from a nutrient standpoint, so we do have issues. We can either do row covers. They have insect netting that we just drape over it. That is a good kind of last resort because with the wind that we get around here, it's hard to keep it down and sealed enough. with cucumbers, for example, we plant ones that are parthenocarpic that don't need pollinated, and those we just keep covered. With squash, for example, that's another major one that we have issues with. We keep it covered with something until they start flowering, and when they're bigger and established, since they're healthy, when the pests come, it takes a lot more pest pressure to actually attack them and kill them from when they're young. For a lot of greens and herbs, we don't have issues with cabbage family, cabbage, kohlrabi, broccoli, etc. There are a couple bugs, and that BT that I mentioned is in corn. That and the GMO corn, that's actually a organic, I guess, pesticide of sorts. It's a bacteria. The difference is that when you use an organic, you just spray it on, and in a few days it dies, and it's no issue. Or, you wash it, and it just washes off. It's not actually in the cell of the plant, and that usually takes care of that. Otherwise, with tomato blight, we had some actually on the seedlings before they got out last year, and it was early enough that we just tossed them out because we didn't want any issues in the high tunnel later. Otherwise, we can use, for any type of fungus, we can just use elemental copper, like copper sulfate, and spray it on. But yeah, it's always a trick and challenge. I would love to just be able to use grow covers for everything, but it's just a pain we don't have a very good wind break, and getting 50-mile-an-hour winds, it'll shred it or pull it off. So yeah. Yes.
Are you pretty isolated from other conventional farmers who are using the glyphosate?
Not really. Our farm, it was a cornfield a couple years ago, and we're on a 270-acre property, and about half of it it's trees, woodland, and we've got like a 40-acre pond. That obviously doesn't get any chemicals, and then we've also got some ground that is in CRP, a conservation program, that doesn't get any. What does is, just next to us, we've got a little buffer, and that gets it, but the guy that farms it, well, first of all, the co-op that normally sprays said, if you're doing vegetables, we won't spray it because we don't want to get sued. Because they're afraid of, if there's drift, if anything in the greenhouse gets hit, they know how much that's worth, and they're afraid. They've heard of too many horror stories. So the guy that farms it sprays it, and he's real good about, all our stuff is on the north end of the field, so he always makes sure that there's a north wind. So he sprays it all himself, and that way any drift goes to the south rather than up at us. The field immediately around us, it's a 17-acre field. He has said that he's going to put to alfalfa next year, because that, once it's established, it won't need sprayed. So that's how, it's nice having him. But yeah, that's definitely an issue for a lot of people, because for organic standards, they only require a 25-foot buffer, and that's not enough. I know of several times with the planes that go and spray, they'll go and drop and miss by a few hundred feet. So, but yeah, unless you've got enough ground and have a way to keep it isolated, we've tried to get people out there that have cattle to run a grass-fed operation, but that hasn't worked out at this point. It's just been too far away from them. So, and I'd love to have them, but I don't have the time or knowledge for that at this point. So, yes, Jeff.
What's been your biggest obstacle so far, and what do you think the next biggest one's going to be long term?
Marketing. Sales. See, they always talk about how farmers, they become farmers because they like talking to cows more than people, and there is some truth to that. And I love reading the books and learning the science about stuff, learning the organic chemistry and all that about how these grow, but actually finding the people that want to buy it in scale, that's been the most difficult challenge. If any of you know who Tony Robbins is, to help with that, I've gone through a couple of his CD courses, just to help get perspective and learn more on that, and that's helps. But really, it's just finding the people, because we've got places like Open Harvest Grocery here, and that little group of people, they know of these farms that have been around for maybe 20 years already selling this and are pretty committed there. But it's figuring out how do we reach these other people? You know, with social media, with like Facebook, we can go and target audiences, but now they're saying that they aren't gonna, you know, show our posts as much. We do have Instagram, and have been experimenting with that. I think that'll be good, but otherwise, if you have any ideas on where these people are, I would love to hear it.
I got a few.
Okay. Because I mean, I do know of people that there's a guy up here that he goes around and markets produce to schools and has had limited success with that. With grocery stores, like down in Beatrice, we sell to one of them, and that's been good. But there's also the mindset that a lot of people think, oh, well, we're just a little hobby place with our garden, but we don't have the, you know, quantity, which I mean, in some cases is true, but I mean, for example, they're maybe ordering a couple pounds of carrots, whereas we could get 50 pounds of carrots if they need it, and it's like it's an added thing, not necessarily something that you, like their main, you know, it's not their main carrots or their main whatever. And that what goes too with the farmer's market is if we had people that actually bought for all their meals there, I mean, everyone would be sold out in 15 minutes. But so many people come just because tomatoes are in season. We want a couple of them just kind of as a little addition. But and for customers, we have had them that want to can green beans or tomatoes, and we've got wholesale prices, and we just give them a price break on it for that. So otherwise, if that was solved, the next issue would probably be farm labor. A lot of the bigger farms, they use the H-2A workers. On a smaller scale, like what we would be at, where we would just need one or two people, it'd be a little bit more of an issue. It's just, it's you know, one of those jobs where it's hard work and it's diverse, and you almost have to have a passion for it to be good at it. It's not something that you would just say, oh, I just want to do this for, you know, most farms pay 10 to 15 an hour. So, I mean, there's a lot easier jobs you can do for that amount. So that'd be the next issue, is finding farm labor. But there are a lot of new tools coming out to make it a lot more efficient for us. For transplanting, for example, there's something called a paper pot, which it looks like our normal seeding trays, but it's in a chain. And we just stick the end of this chain in the ground, and then it's got a little cart that it sits on. We just walk down, and you can take, you know, an hour worth of transplanting down to 8 minutes, which from a labor standpoint is just huge. I mean, it's a couple $1,000 investment, but there's also places that they make salad green cutters that run off of a little 12-volt drill. You just put that in it, carry it, and go along. That's another thing that speeds it up. Tool-wise, we're always for cleaning like greens, or places that have plans now where we can take because post-harvest is half of our labor. They have plans where we can take like a jacuzzi pump and make a little bubbler so we can put greens or crops in it, and they get a lot more of the dirt out than regular. A lot of farms also take old washing machines, and there are these orange fishing baskets. They just happen to fit in there, and these washing machines turn at the right RPM that you can put greens in these fishing baskets, spin it, and it'll spin and get the excess water out, but it won't beat them up. So I think it's 800 RPM about, they say, is optimum for that, and that's what the motors run at. So.
We are out of time, Riley. I'm sorry to tell you that. Great questions. So thanks everybody for chiming in with questions. As a thank you, we want to give you a Focus Suite mug to take back with you, and let's not forget to do your drawing.